being a demonstration of the diverse processes by which those foolish mortals who serve the Chaos powers may come to their just rewards and deserts, and including discussions on the fates of such mortals at the hands of the powers of Chaos. Johann von Gottlieb, murderer, hater, willing servant of Khorne. His bloody road led him deeper into Chaos. He was unwise when he first killed, and with each killing his folly grew. Each death marked him as Khorne's own. Each drop of blood raised him in Khorne's sight. But it was his last killing as a true man that marked him out. Johann slaughtered one of Khorne's champions. In that moment he bellowed his victory to the sky. The champion's blood was for Khorne. The champion's armour, a suit of darkest metal, forged in some far smithy of Chaos, was for Johann. In that moment, Johann's handhold was firm. His reach was long enough for the climb ahead, and in that moment, the darkness within burst free, and Johann was marked as the blood god's servant. Two terrible curved horns, like those of a ram, sprouted from his forehead. And what of the other von Gottlieb? There are many roads to Chaos, and Lothar galloped down his chosen path. Nothing was beyond him. No creature, man, woman or child, living or dead, was safe from his depravity. His behaviour would have shamed a Bretonnian. At the back of the room a young woman sniggered and leaned forward in her chair. The old man sipped his wine and held up a finger. Questions died on the girl's lips. I will say no more of that, but, young lady, you also wish to know whether Lothar was marked by Chaos. You want to know whether you could see the mark, as if that proved his guilt. Lothar was tainted from the moment he began his climb towards the power and pleasure of Slaanesh. His loyalty was hidden from casual eyes. It was his hands, my dear, his hands. Fools wondered why Lothar always wore gloves, and pitied his rheumatic fingers. The creature within had shown itself, and Lothar's long, clever fingers had become bestial claws. The first mark of Slaanesh was made, and Lothar bore it with quiet and misguided pride. Although the gods of Chaos are indeed foul, there are those who willingly choose to serve and follow them. The promise of easy power and the seductive blandishments of Chaos can prove too strong for many minds. And so there are those willing to ally themselves with the dark powers of Chaos. The commitment is total. Body and soul belong to Chaos. Followers of Chaos give up all vestige of their former humanity and become champions of Chaos. The warriors and sorcerers who ravage across the Chaos wastes in the name of one dark power or another. The many who dedicate themselves to the service of Chaos and its gods are doomed to an all-or-nothing existence. As a champion of Chaos, the rewards of Chaos' ultimate power, or endless oblivion. And power is everything. To achieve greatness in the eyes of their Chaos gods, champions carry out any act, no matter how vile. This tainted flirtation with the power of Chaos is, in itself, part of the price, and the reward of Chaos. And there is a price to be paid. Mutation and madness are only part of that price, but mutation and madness become the rewards of dedicated service for a true champion of Chaos. Eventually, the lucky few are rewarded by achieving the status of demonhood in the service of their Chaos god. They can pass beyond mortal concerns, rising to even higher levels of power as immortal followers of Chaos. For the rest, however, their flirtation with power can end as abruptly as it began. Chaos has its own reckoning. When those champions of Chaos who are found lacking in the eyes of the gods are condemned For those who fail, the final reward of chaos is terrible. They become mindless, oblivious chaos spawn. It is their fate to run, gibbering and shrieking, with the countless other individuals that the chaos gods have used and tossed aside. The champion of chaos chooses an easy road to power, but it is only a short road. He cannot escape the day when his fate finds him out. To exist as a demon prince or chaos spawn is the final price of chaos. The madness and mutation that are the hallmarks of chaos are a small price indeed. Where the demon treads, there treads the weakling after. Where stalks the dark hunter of the night, creeps behind the craven fool. I say you can find out the servants of darkness and tell them by their mark, for believe me, each bears a mark, each bears an outward scar of the devilry within. No man is born so unnatural that his body does not revolt at the foul pollution spawned inside. And by these marks can you tell them? By the horns of the beast, for they have turned themselves from the light and should be slaughtered like the kine in the fields. By the scales of the snake, for they slither in dark places and should be beaten with a rod. By the feathers of the eagle, for they have vexed the gods with vain flight and should be brought down with a stone. The powers of chaos give their own champions special rewards to mark them as followers and servants. These are given in place of chaos rewards, which almost any champion of chaos could receive. With a mighty shout he rose, brighter than the sun, and more fierce. In his hand he held a rod of twisted bone, crossed and double-crossed to form the sign of his dark lord, a symbol of his power, and fruit of mortal longings well fulfilled. He rose above the company, taller far than they, and looked with black pride on these his frighted slaves. He snarled and heard the sound of noble hatred echoing from the skies. He stared the savage stare of immortal jury, and death was his gaze. And on that blasted heath his ashen servants turned, gripped by cold, unthinking terror, and fled his absence. And on the blasted heath a demon prince was born. Champions of chaos attract evil and power-hungry followers as readily as putrescence brings flies. All come to feast on corruption. Flies, however, eat their fill out of necessity. A champion of chaos is surrounded by a retinue of servants and followers. Some of these are granted directly by his chaos god. Chaos spawn, chaos hounds, steeds and hunting beasts. Others make their own way into the chaos wastes in search of power. Many lack the force of will to become champions themselves and turn to chaos in a mean and petty way. Unable to reach the heights of power, they content themselves with immature evils and smaller, mean-spirited corruptions. As such, they are ideal servants of chaos, debased, corrupt, and malleable to another's will. They are the perfect followers for a champion of chaos. Being in the first part an explanation and illumination of the methods of spells and magic to be found amongst the demons and mortals in the service of the dark powers of chaos. In the second part, a compendium of the powers of magical and enchanted weapons, and in the third, a discourse upon the dread powers of demons when forged into foul and unclean blades of chaos. Many are they who debauch themselves in the name of Slanesh, and Lothar fell in with one such sect. He rose rapidly in their councils, for his mind was apt to their purposes. He was inventive and quick-witted, and he amused his friends with the originality and vulgarity of his contributions to their cause. As Lothar climbed in secret stature, his loyalty became obvious to even the most casual observer. No longer were his hands his only mark. He bore the new stigma in a horrific fashion. His tongue had been persuasive, a seductive lure to the unwary whom he used for his pleasure and cast aside. His tongue remained a snare, but no normal man had such a twisting thing within his jaws. The lash of his tongue became dangerous indeed. Lothar fled, the witch hunters at his heels, until he reached the Chaos Wastes. Already a champion in the cause of Slaanesh, he turned and killed his pursuers and cursed forever the lands of his birth. Free to wander and despoil, he embraced Slaanesh with renewed vigour. The fire spluttered and flared as its resinous wood burned and popped. Horned and winged shadows danced behind the old man as he continued the tale. Johann's way was ever upwards in the favour of Khorne. His ruthless course was marked in blood and skulls, blood for his god, and skulls piled high on the battlefields and harsh meadows of chaos. Death had no rest with Johann's work. As thought and reason slipped away from him, Johann burned with hate for all those too weak to take the warrior's path. It gnawed at his heart and found expression in the changes that time wrought on the once man. There had been a young Johann, proud of his looks. Now there was Johann the beast. His face had been handsome, now it was the snarling muzzle of a hunting dog.